So, good morning, everybody. I'm Chloe. I help businesses connect the dots between people, performance, and profit with bespoke HR and learning solutions. I'm going to try not to bore you to death today with the usual stuff about disciplinaries, grievances, and policies, and show you why we're a little bit different. But also, I'm relatively new to the group as well. So, I just want to make sure that you all get to know me a little bit as a person as well. So I'm a CIPD qualified HR professional. CIPD is the professional body in the UK for people practitioners. I also hold other accreditations relevant to my practice in mental health first aid, IOSH managing safely, and trauma-informed practice. There's me and a part-time HR advisor in the business. I officially became an employer myself earlier this year after years of supporting other people in their employment journeys. As well as serving clients through our own business, we also are trusted as associate trainers to several other businesses, such as Clear Quality. We've worked alongside our local chamber to deliver programmes to the business community. And we also deliver training that is often part funded by South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority, directly to businesses and through aggregate programmes that have been designed by us. And I'll tell you a little bit more about those later on. So it wouldn't be fair to move on without introducing the most important person in our organisation. Vindog also answers to Vinny and Vincent Van Dog, all kinds of things. Mainly answers to the rustling sounds of packets of food, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. But he's 12 years young now. I've had him since he was a puppy, and I rescued him. A neighbour actually moved out and left him in the garden as a puppy. So long story, but it's a good tale to tell if we ever have a one-to-one with anyone. So my journey, I fell into HR after dropping out of my university chemistry degree in Huddersfield. 1 year in, I realised I absolutely hated being in a lab, and I was pretty crap at maths as well, if I'm being totally honest. But people have always fascinated me. I've worked extensively in automotive retail and in the engineering and manufacturing sectors, but now the work that I do is pretty sector agnostic. You might recognise names like Arnold Clark, the Car People, and Sitner. They're some of the businesses that I have worked in. I studied alongside work to achieve up to a postgrad level qualification in HR, and then I founded Onesource HR 6 years ago in July. During this time, I also founded a community interest company that was set up to support women who had been impacted by domestic and sexual violence to access employability and financial wellbeing resources. And this is what led me to become a Victim Focus accredited trainer in 2024. And so, aside to the HR job, I am qualified to deliver training in violence against women and girls. And that training has already been delivered by me and others to over 30,000 professionals in the UK, such as police forces and social workers. On a personal note, I absolutely love to travel, and there's a picture there of me on a Vespa tour around Tuscany last year. I love to dress for pure joy, anything bright and colourful, and my switch off activity is hand balancing. I've been practicing that for around 2 years now. You definitely can't think about very much when you're trying to stay upside down. And don't be fooled, whilst I'm upside down here, I do spend a lot of the time actually falling on my backside. In 2024, I learned to podcast, and I have 2 podcasts. One is very much non-work. It's me having ramblings and personal reflections about my life. And the other one is the Yorkshire Business Podcast. We feature bright and brilliant businesses in and around Yorkshire. Chris Breeden, who's in this group, but I don't think he's here today, has actually been a guest on the pod. Another couple of firsts, I sponsored and presented the award at the British Glass Awards last year to NSG Pilkington for their Women in the Workplace efforts. And my own business was shortlisted as a finalist for two awards, one of which we won, which was the 2024 HR Award for Learning and Development Provision of the Year. And that was associated with our learning solution around prevention of sexual harassment. So, enough with the fluffy stuff. What do I actually do? Well, this is what my dad thinks I do, just hiring and firing. That's what he thinks HR is. And a lot of people do. But what I actually do is help businesses connect their people strategy to their business strategy. So I look at every single part of the employee life cycle, from how we hire people, how we develop them, how we reward them, how we manage conduct, and even how we offboard them as well, to create a better employer brand. And there's plenty of evidence to demonstrate that employer brand has a direct impact on the customer experience. So it is literally connecting those dots between people's happiness and productivity at work, to organisational performance, and therefore to the bottom line. So whilst I'm a generalist HR consultant, I can pretty much do everything in that life cycle we looked at. There are a couple of bits that I'm really good at. There's no probably about it. I do have the most unique prevention of sexual harassment training on the UK market at the moment. Currently, I'm the only trauma-informed accredited HR consultant providing that solution in the UK. So we don't just cover what people should and shouldn't touch at work, what people should and shouldn't say at work. We talk about the psychology of sexual misconduct, power dynamics, and bystander intervention. On that front, I've worked with big and small businesses alike, from Age UK National right through to smaller manufacturers like a composite manufacturer in Chesterfield. I'm pretty good on the mergers and acquisitions side of things as well. The first merger and acquisition I did was when I was the sole HR lead at the Car People. They had over 700 staff across 4 locations. They sold that business to Sytner, and then they merged it with another business called Car Shop that was also owned by Sytner. After that, I worked for a private equity owned business with quite an aggressive strategy to consolidate the market. Over 5 years, we pivoted their business model from 80% export and 20% domestic market to 60% domestic market and 40% export, all whilst undergoing 5 mergers and acquisitions in that time and growing turnover by 380%. Again, I led the people strategy in that business. Part of that work was creating a strategy to help them solve their skills gaps. 40% of their workforce were due to retire over 5 years, and there was nobody coming in behind them. Apprenticeships alone are not a strategy. 76% of UK employers report experiencing skills shortages, but many businesses don't actually look at their data to inform how to solve the problem. For example, what is the age demographic of the workforce? What is the gender demographic of the workforce? So typically, you might think that this kind of occupational segregation only impacts one gender, but in fact, a less diverse workforce is proven to keep wages low for everybody. If you're interested in learning more about the work that I do around this kind of occupational segregation, I recorded a brilliant podcast with a lady called Margaret Wood, which goes into much more detail, and I'm happy to share the link to that with anybody that's interested. So don't just take my word for me being great at what I do. You can scan this QR code and visit our YouTube channel. Here you can view testimonials from local clients. You can learn more about my work in sexual harassment prevention. And you can also just generally find out more about the HR services that we provide. I can pop this QR code in the chat too, if anybody wants to take a look. So what am I looking for today? Well, I'm looking for anyone that needs some strategic HR support and wants to improve their bottom line. because HR isn't just about compliance. And for me, I quite firmly believe that where you've got confidence and capability across management in a business, the compliance piece will naturally flow. But mainly, I'm looking for introductions to businesses that are regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. So, Yorkshire is one of the fastest growing financial hubs outside of London. And over the last 3 years, the Financial Conduct Authority have tripled their presence here in Yorkshire. They're paying really close attention to sexual misconduct in businesses they regulate, specifically because they believe where that thrives, it's indicative of other behaviours being allowed, such as fraud. And that's me. So I will open the floor to any questions.
Wow, great presentation.
Yeah, really.
Absolutely brilliant.
Sorry, Max, I hate online things. I always end up interrupting people. Do you do mediation, Chloe?
I don't, but Chris Breeden, who's in the group, is a mediator, and I've worked closely with him on a couple of bits.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Max, by the way. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
No, I can't wait to catch up.
Any questions, anybody?
I thought that was absolutely brilliant, Chloe. I think, you're a fantastic presenter and very, very inspirational. And I think with all the achievements that you've had, absolute credit to you. You're amazing. Love one-to-one with you. Love to hear more about your journey. And just one question whilst we're on here. What would you say has been your biggest takeaway in business in terms of, because you're obviously clearly very entrepreneurial and driven, what would you say is the kind of drive behind that? What's the one thing that you've learned to be able to get to where you are?
Oh, well, thank you for the compliments. I really appreciate that. I think for me, it's like to find that niche and find where your passion and skills combine. So, like for me, I ran a CIC for a number of years, but I wasn't very good in that kind of third sector. It moved at such a slow pace for me. So it got me thinking, like, how can I bring what I'm passionate about and combine it with the skills that I've got? So that's where I found this like really unique niche in looking at sexual misconduct at work. And I think once you find that, it's a massive driver and it just really shines through when you're building like your online presence and meeting new people.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chloe,
Yeah.
how quick is the legislation changing, and how do companies keep up with the changes in legislation?
So Georgina might want to tip in on this as well. But the legislation specifically for sexual harassment, it changed in October last year. So employers now have a proactive and preventative duty. So they can't just wait until something's happened. They've actually got to put steps in place to prevent it from happening in the first place. And that legislation is a bit of a double-edged sword because it's also governed by the Equality and Human Rights Commission. So they don't have to wait for something to happen to take action. Where they suspect that you're not compliant, they can investigate and issue notices as well. But with a new Labour government, we've had something called the Employment Rights Bill, and that proposes, I think it's over 28 different changes to legislation that may or may not all happen, but there will be significant changes to employment law over the next sort of 18 months to 2 years. And a lot of businesses are feeling that pressure and kind of feeling like there's a big swing towards more employee rights than for businesses. I think a lot of them actually are behind the curve, and it's engaging with people like me, like Georgina, and going on free webinars and just taking that time out to keep up with what your duties are as an employer, because they're shifting very fast.
Yeah. I love that. I thought that was an amazing presentation, Chloe. And you are, sorry, I don't remember the other lady's name. Is it Leanne? Really like inspirational with what you do. And I'd love to work with you more. Maybe I know we've had a one-to-one a couple of weeks ago, but it'd be nice at some point, you know, to maybe have another one, because I think that there's so much opportunity for sort of referrals, and we're always trying to push HR into our clients, because just to go back to what you were saying, Chloe, about they're behind the curve. A lot of businesses are so far behind the curve, and it's about saying, look, get ahead of it and know what you need to do. And it's to speculate to accumulate, but I don't know what you find, Chloe, but they're often so like reactive. They wait until something goes wrong, and then like, you know, they bring you in or they bring us in, and really there's so much advantage to be had by getting decent quality HR in earlier. But it's really hard to, it's really hard to sell that to a lot of people. And I think particularly with sort of the sexual harassment thing, I was just interested in how easy you found it to engage your business clients with that particular topic, because it's quite a contentious topic. It can be quite get a lot of sort of passion about it in meetings and things, I imagine, because it's one of those.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, client acquisition, it does happen typically through someone having a big problem, you know, the crap's hit the fan and they need you to come in and fix a problem. And then you start to look at the proactive stuff, and you can completely change the way that they think about HR. In terms of the like training delivery, it's always been, there's been a woman at quite senior level that has advocated for it. It is difficult to engage businesses that have, you know, just boards of men. However, what I would say is, when I deliver the training, it's so rewarding just seeing those light bulb moments of people shift their mindset. And I am very comfortable in facilitating. It's quite debate and discussion focused, facilitating those open conversations and saying, like, tell me the stuff that you hear down the pub. And it is stuff like, if a woman dresses in a certain way, you know, she's going to get what's coming to her eventually. And then we can start to, you know, debunk that and get under the psychology of why we think that way and why it's not quite right. But yeah, I'm quite confident facilitating them conversations. It doesn't like upset me because their belief's different, because it is something that is just so ingrained in our society.
Yeah, Chloe, I did have a chat the other day, didn't we? We spoke about, you know, getting into the CAI, but I was just thinking out loud. My newsletter's gone this month, but for next month, if you can put together, say, a paragraph, then I'll send it. Most of my clients are FCA regulated, so happy to include a snippet and just a little bit of detail on. Drop me an email on what that session looks like, and
Yeah,
you know, how long it lasts, and then hopefully I can get some traction.
yeah, thanks, Lisa. I really appreciate that.